Just because someone's older than me, I need to respect them. Well, what if someone's
Mm.
doing something they shouldn't or inappropriate?
It all comes obedience and compliance. And there is some research on that victimization happens because we teach obedience and
Oh
compliance
my God.
to people in position. And they're taught not to listen to their intuition. They're taught not to stand up and say, this is not okay.
Today's guest is Dr. Lauren Fulkerson. She is a board-certified pediatrician, a health and wellness coach, a CrossFit Level 1 trainer, and an advocate for metabolic and mental health in children, adults, and first responders. She spent 9 years living in Hong Kong, where she left clinical medicine, raised 4 kids, and now back in the US, rebuilding her medical license, doing deep work around parenting, mental health, and how the environments we create for children either equip them or quietly break them down.
Parenting is a huge skill. Everything we do in our parenting work is really applicable to any situation, any relationship.
I see so many people struggling, and these are a lot of habits and behaviors that started when they were young.
Unfortunately, we look at children like they're not people. To have their own personality, their own dynamic, they are creating their own history.
Thought, wow, more people need to hear her message and what she shares, and I hope this inspires her to share more of her videos too moving forward. Super. So hello and welcome to the show.
Wow.
I have the pleasure of being here with Lauren Fulkerson. She is a board-certified pediatrician, health and wellness coach, advocate for mental and metabolic health, CrossFit Level 1 trainer, and so much more. And I'm going to let her get into her passions. I just want to, one of my favorite things is just getting to meet amazing people. And the way that I met Lauren, and she's going to hear this for the first time, is we were at the CrossFit Health Summit together. And I was there with one of my trainers and nutritionists, Nick, and I kind of didn't know anyone. And some people who know me know that I'm an ambivert. I'm not an extrovert. And Lauren just struck up a conversation with me, and I can't tell you how comfortable she made me feel because I really did not know anyone outside of that one individual. So thank you, Lauren, for making it super awesome.
Oh my gosh, it was such a great event. Yeah, it was so
Totally.
wonderful to meet you.
You too.
And
You
yeah,
too. We just felt like we were kind of kindred spirits in a sense, and I've been able to follow what Lauren does, and I just think she brings a wealth of information. My audience knows I do not have children, but I have nieces and nephews, and I am so passionate about the work that she brings in. I was fascinated. We were on a phone call, and I just thought, wow, more people need to hear her message and what she shares, and I hope this inspires her to share more of her videos too moving forward. But Lauren, just tell us a little bit about
thank
yourself.
you. Yeah, it's great that you bring that up. I just remember talking to you and just you are so easy to talk to, and it's so hard to find people that you connect with so quickly and easily. And you were just, I don't know, it was just so engaging, and I just loved it. And I felt like you really were interested in
I
what I
was.
was talking about and what I was going off about. But yeah, I mean, just briefly, I, yeah, I was trained as a pediatrician, but my path took a bit of a turn, if you know, a large turn, I guess you should say. And in 2011, while I was practicing, I had 3 young kids, twins, and then a 1-year-old. And the opportunity came up to move to Hong Kong. And so at that time, after a lot of thought and, to leave my practice and really focus on my kids, it just felt right. It was hard. It was definitely a hard decision to make. And the initial thought was that it will be a quick, 3 to 4 year at most to live abroad. And so the opportunity just felt right for me and my family, and for me to be able to focus on my kids and really pour myself into them, especially while they were little. And so just really grateful for that opportunity. And when we went over, we ended up loving it. I ended up having a fourth of my daughter, and we just loved it so much, and the opportunity came to stay. And so we stayed. And that really was a huge pivot for me. I mean, first of all, I was getting really involved in parenting work. I was diving myself into it. I was lucky enough to find a mentor there. And so she became my mentor and really coached me. And I've been doing that since I remember, because I was pregnant with my daughter. So 12 plus, now it's about 12 years that I've been doing that work. And it was completely transformative. It was transformative on every level. Obviously, not only with parenting, but it was such a deep dive into behavior, mental health, communication for me, which I'd never been taught. I mean, these are all skills, and even parenting is a huge skill. And that's something I really want to get out there is that this is something we need to develop and learn how to do. And I say parenting, but it actually is really any kind of relationship that you
Sure.
have. Everything we do in our parenting work is really applicable to any situation, any relationship, building, connection and compassion and communication. And that's kind of, when I really think about what I focus on, it's really that. It's compassion. It's a lot of self-compassion, which
Yeah.
it starts with self-compassion, compassion for others, learning perspective, communication. It's is key to just developing relationships and also repairing relationships, because we know relationships fracture. And so being able to repair those relationships and so those things are so important to me. And connection, and how we connect, and how we, help support the people around us, how we support ourselves. And so that was hugely transformative. Little did I know that being away from clinical medicine would be so difficult to get back into. And so, after 9 years, we were in Hong Kong, and we actually would have stayed. We loved it. The experience was amazing. But life changes. And so we ended up moving back during the pandemic. And for me, the perspective gained from being abroad and coming back and seeing not only, just a whole different worldview, but also, especially specifically for me, like what happened with healthcare.
Yes.
And what was just so catastrophic. Coming back and seeing what happened in healthcare, not only healthcare, but obviously with kids and adults with their metabolic and mental health. And so that led me down the path of really diving into metabolic and mental health and using what I'd learned with this parenting work, and how to really educate people and advocate more. And I was hoping to get right back into clinical practice when I moved back 5 years ago. And it's been a really big challenge to get my licensure back and my board certification, which I finally did after almost 5 years.
Amazing.
So yeah, but in the meantime, I was doing all the other things that I could do. Obviously I got really involved in CrossFit. I started CrossFit in Hong Kong, and that became a huge part of my life. And then eventually my children's lives, which I can talk about as well. So I became a CrossFit coach, and then, was lucky enough to cross paths with some really incredible people in the CrossFit space, the metabolic space. I was able to, cross paths with Dr. Palmer, who was putting the two together, metabolic and mental health, and learned so much from that experience. And then with those connections, also became really involved in the first responder community, which I think is just a really, important community to advocate for and support. Their rate of suicide is so extraordinarily high, but also their metabolic health is so their metabolic health. And so actually now that I'd learned the connection between the two, and then all the trauma that, obviously first responders encounter. So it makes sense to me. All of it ties together for me. But now that I'm seeing this big picture of how this all connects, and then going back to the support of children, and how do we support children? Well, we support the adults that are around them. And how do we create the environment for children to thrive and feel safe? Well, we have to make the adults that surround them and their environment safe, feel safe, and have them do the work so they can create it for their children. So that's where I am. So those are really my passions, is how we can really help children, but we really have to help the adults, because there's so much experience, that we experience as children and we bring into our adulthood that is completely subconscious. And we just work out of that. And it's not always serving us. Most of the time, a lot of times it isn't serving us. And so that unpacking, and that's what I did, the time in Hong Kong, and I had my own really significant mental health struggles, which basically just unraveled me more than I'd ever experienced in my entire life. And so that's really where you have to do that work and unpack. And so, I go through and I think about, I always see these transformational stories about people who, struggled and do these things, and now they're here into this, success story. And I was thinking the other day that I'm not a success story yet. Like, And I want people to see that there's this really messy, hard middle part of getting from this point to this point that we really don't see.
Yes.
When we see the before and after and we think, oh my gosh, right, but I'm here in this really awful middle, like what, there's this stuckness and this lack of hope.
Yeah.
And so I just want people to know that there's no end point, as you know.
Yeah.
There's like a constant process, and there's a constant learning and growing, and there's not just a before and after, right? So that's just something I want to put out there, and it's all this work put together, and it's a constant, as you know, a constant battle and a constant rewiring of yourself and your habits and what you do. So,
which is so interesting, Lauren, too. And I feel like we're so hard on ourselves, whether it's women, it could be men too. We're hard on ourselves, and we don't, like, even you're saying, like, you went through an unraveling, but you're also with children and a foreign country, and everyone, oh wow, it must be so great to be in Hong Kong, but no one's paying attention to all the other things, right, that are going on. So and it brings me to just some questions I have, because even in my work as a leadership coach, sales coach, high performer coach, I see so many people struggling, and these are a lot of habits and behaviors that started when they were young, right? That they're walking, I hate to say it, but I feel like we're all at some points, we're walking around, we're running meetings like children, because we're going back to what triggered us when we were younger. And if we can't lead ourselves, we can't lead other people. We can't lead ourselves, we can't lead children, right? And you're at home and you're leading your own children. That's so powerful, and you can tell how passionate you are about it, which is amazing. Yeah. So I definitely want to dive in more, and for the audience, two things that really stuck with me. Lauren did 2 videos on autonomy around children, and I just thought, wow, first it made me think of when I was a teen, and I thought, wow, that's why I might have acted out the way I did, because I'm very autonomous.
Yeah.
And then the intuition piece is even in my adulthood, just not until the last 2 years really, where I've been really working on listening to my intuition, and those things are so powerful. So when she was talking about children, I'm thinking to myself, wow, like these are all things as adults we need to work on.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought that up, because it all goes together, and I'll hopefully tie it all together. We look at children. Unfortunately, we look at children like they're not people.
Yeah.
Like they're not full human beings that have their own everything, their own personality, their own dynamic. They are creating their own history, and they're creating their own path. And of course, this is something I always talk about. Their brain is just not developed clearly, right? But it's developing and it's forming, and they need all these experiences to fully develop and grow and learn. And it's really interesting, because I've been thinking about this a lot. I think what happens with parents is when they're born, entire survival depends on us. And so we have to be in control. Yeah. We have to do these things, because they literally will not survive without these things. And then at some point, when kids start becoming more autonomous in a way, right? They become more developmentally appropriate. Like they start talking and they start walking and they start doing these things. There's some point that we have to start letting go of that control, that they will survive. I mean, obviously there's things that we have to do, and that's our role as a parent, to guide them and not control them. So we have to control yes, of course we have to control things when they're babies, and to protect them. And there's always that role for us as a parent to be protective. But there's a huge difference between being protective and being controlling, and controlling the narrative and the path that we think they should have, and versus guiding. And in order to guide your children, you have to have a safe relationship and a safe environment for them, because they will not, as they become more autonomous and creating their own life and path and having their own voice and being able to talk and have their tantrums and have all these emotions that are happening, they need that safe space, and they need the guidance for them to learn and develop. Like, kids don't understand their tantrum is related to like they haven't eaten or they're not being heard. They can't communicate. They don't know what's going on. They're hungry. They're tired. Right. So it's up to us to recognize that and give them the words of like, yeah, you're really frustrated. This is so upsetting for you that you can't do what you want to do, that you can't climb on the, you can't climb up to the top of the shelf because we have to protect them. So being able to give kids words, but not at the cost of their autonomy. All people, that's one of our core needs. There's a lot of like obviously core needs that we need for basic survival, but also autonomy is so big. And we all want to be autonomous and we all want to have and decision-making ability, and we want to know that we can do things.
Yeah.
So and that's really hard a lot for parents to struggle with letting kids have their autonomy. And also,
do you have an example of, I'm just trying to think of parents with obviously kids with different ages, but an example of where we tend to jump in and control versus letting them.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And then I'll get into the intuition because it all ties in too as well. But for example, I mean, a young child, right, who just wants to not be told what to do, like go put your clothes on, go do this. I mean, this is like a very basic example, but it's very common. It's like, go, eat this, finish your food, Like kids are constantly being told what to do, right? And if you just shift it into, hey, we need to get ready to go. What would you like to wear today? Right? Just tell me, it's even, and I'm saying in a guidance, like, hey, these are the foods that we have. These are really good for our bodies, right? Yeah. Which ones do you really prefer? Right? So you're also making some kind of guidance choice around it, but you're also giving them the ability to make the choice around it and having these conversations of, I know it's really hard for you to go to bed. Like it's really frustrating and you don't want to go to bed right now. Like and this is not permissive parenting. This comes up a lot. People think they're just going to be permissive. This is not about you being walked over, right? Which I can get to as well. But it's just having them have a little bit of say, like, hey, we're going to need to shut this off soon. How much longer do you think you need? Because we need to go do X, Y, and Z, right? Giving them a little bit of say in what they do is so important. And on a bigger scale, actually, I just had a recent example of this with my 15-year-old, even older, right? Getting into the older age. He's a huge avid golfer and he wanted to try out for rugby. And I completely just imploded. Right? So I also want to point out that I'm not, like, I have a lot of skills that I've learned, but I'm human and these, like, you will be triggered and you will not show up. So I completely, just I imploded. I couldn't sleep that night. I was so stressed. And part of it was because my other son had broken his wrist, had a really terrible wrist fracture with rugby. He was out of CrossFit for a year. It was really awful. And so I'm envisioning, right, this whole scenario about my son who wants to go play rugby, but he has to try out for the golf team. And if he's going to get hurt, well, I had to realize I'm the one in the problem zone, right? I'm the one struggling with this. And in order to not just go in and say, no, like controlling and giving him the autonomy of it, like I had to step back. And like I said, it took me a few days to really get into this and think, how am I going to do this, right? How am I going to guide him as well? And he's 15 also.
Yeah.
There's no way, right? No one likes to be told what to do. So it was more so of when I finally kind of got through my emotions, calmed down, grounded myself. And like I said, it took a couple of days.
Yeah.
And I expressed my concerns. This is what I'm really worried about. And I just need to know that you understand the potential consequences of you going out for rugby.
Love it.
Yeah, Mom, I know. No, let's talk about this. This is real. Like your brother had this, and this is what I'm concerned about, right? This is my issue, right? And I will be there to support you, but, or it could take away from golf if you get hurt, all the list. I won't get into it, but it was being able to have that conversation, knowing that I was heard, knowing that he heard me, and also allowing him to make the choice to do it. But also me being able to at least make sure he kind of thought through, because right, he's not there yet. His brain's not completely developed. He may not think through. I tell my kids sometimes I have to be your frontal lobe. Like,
Yeah.
let me just walk you through all the scenarios that I'm worried about, that I think could happen, and I don't know if they'll fully understand it, but they also have to make those decisions. And if he went and played and he got hurt, at least right, I said what I gave him the option and he made this choice. And so that was a hard one, but it is, it's so important. And it's also, the other thing I really want to be clear about is it's also based on years of a relationship that in an environment that I've worked on creating, where he's not resentful, he's not retaliating, he's not rebelling. He's open to the conversation with me. And there's not that resistance. Yeah.
What did you do to create that? Because I do remember I remember when we spoke, you had said something in how you talk to them to get them to share what their thoughts are on things. Like you leave open-ended questions, which is so important. And when I think of parents, professionals, it doesn't matter what your role is, mom, dad, doesn't matter. When you give people options and you ask great questions, right, that can have just such an impact on the result.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And I mean, it's leadership. This is this is all that you're doing and the work that you're doing. So yeah, I mean, it's leadership. You're being hopefully a good leader and a good coach. I mean, this is the work you do as well, and I think that's why we connected so well. It's not defaulting into this controlling form, right? It is going into being curious and not judgmental.
I love that.
Not judging and assuming that the answer just because we're adults, we have the experience. And we also, I think sometimes, we like to think like, oh yeah, we can predict everything that we're gonna right.
I mean, what's happened to us. That's about it.
I know, right? But that's based on our experiences that we had to fail and fail again, and we had to navigate our own situations. The problem is, I think for a lot of us, maybe, I'm grateful for the experiences I have, but I also did not have. My parents were wonderful, and they did not have all the skills either.
Yeah.
And so I navigated a lot of things by myself, not understanding what was going on, and I didn't know, I didn't have the words. And so I think it's really being curious about what is this behavior? What are they missing? What are they needing underneath this behavior? And trying to figure out why are we behaving? And it starts with us too, right? Why am I behaving this way? Yes. Right? What's the fear that's coming up for me? What's the trigger that's coming up for me? And so to go to them and just say, tell me more about what's going on. You seem a lot of times it's us educating them on what these emotions are. You seem really frustrated. You seem really scared. And if it's not the emotion that hits, which I'm sure they'll tell you. They'll say, no, I'm not scared. I just don't know what to do. Oh, you're confused. You're feeling conflicted. Yes, you're helping them navigate those conversations, and you're sitting back. And the biggest thing is you to just be curious and not judge, not judge and jump in and try to fix it. And that takes everything in me. And you just want to make it better. You want to make it better. You want to fix it. And I experienced this as an adult. We all do, but none of us wants to be really saved. Yeah. I don't think we really want to be saved. And this goes back to the autonomy. We want to know that we're safe and we have people that will support us, and that we can say things that, we can say whatever's on our mind, and we can work through things with people. But I don't think most of us really want to be saved. I think we want to be supported. Yeah.
Yeah. Even when I think from also a spiritual perspective, but even just you think about kids who end up being given a lot of things and handed a lot of things, and then they aren't given choices. They're just told, whether it's kids, whether it's adults, right? And you're right. Not everyone they want a freedom of choice to say, hey, I did this. And one of the things that you also said that stands out is, I do feel like that curiosity is amazing, right? You're working through
Hmm.
helping someone else feel what they might be feeling and validating them and
Yes.
and controlling part. I mean, I just think of many of the business leaders I work with. It's not from a place of it's not it's like if they're micromanaging, let's say, it's not because they want to micromanage. They're just like, I want to help you, so let's get this done the right way, right? Instead of letting you make some mistakes and figure it out. And so there's
Yeah.
such an overlap in all of it. And I can imagine that many of the parents, at least that I'm working with, or have worked with in the past, probably struggle with the same, jumping in with their kids and controlling. And at least I feel, and I'm sure you agree, and I'd love to hear more, is the importance of, if you have, especially if you have children, if you have a significant other, it doesn't matter, your family
And
around,
it doesn't matter. Yeah, all of it.
be present, because if you're not present, you're missing so many cues that people are trying to give you. And especially kids, like, you're giving them a phone to check out on for a while, or you're on your phone, they are watching everything. They are a mirror.
Yeah, they're watching and yeah, the modeling. And I think, yeah, it's so important. Like you said, it's just being really, like we talk about, like had to be a really good active listener. It's hard. It's really hard because you and I, yeah, I mean, I struggle with this and just, you want to jump in, you want to put in your 2 cents, you want to like, and like I said, it's not just parenting, but anything. I try to be better in my relationships. I'm not always that great. I actually had to tell my kids, please tell me when I interrupt you,
Oh,
because it's so ingrained. So I think we also have to give ourselves, this goes back to the compassion piece of self-compassion. A lot of these behaviors we do are so subconscious and ingrained in us. And so we're acting in these ways that we actually we don't see. And we really have to be so, like crazy self-compassionate to ourselves about the behaviors and the ways we've learned how to cope and manage that we don't even realize, that are so subconscious and they've built up over the years. And so I actually had to tell my kids, I have this tendency to interrupt. Please stop me, because it's almost like, where you have to like snap the rubber band sometimes to break a habit. It's a habit that you're trying to break so you can do better at listening, so you can be more present. And it's hard. So sometimes you need to ask for help. Like, I notice that I do this and I really want to get better at this. It's awareness. Like, number one is awareness. And to go back to the, yeah, I mean, being curious and intuition is, and that kind of goes over the control and the autonomy piece, is that I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like I've always put down my intuition and my gut feeling, the knowing, whatever it is that tells us something isn't right, that we're like, I need to dig into this, or this doesn't feel good, but I'm going to do it anyways because I feel like I'm supposed to, or I feel like, this is what I should do, even though it really, everything about like in my body feels so wrong. And obviously that's over years and years of, different situations. We all have our own experiences. But when we're telling our kids, I think it's so important to have them tap into that things like something doesn't feel good for me, and just saying, okay, like that's okay. Sometimes that's enough, that you just have to listen to something that's not right.
yes.
And I have a quick example with my daughter. She had a teacher one year that was really strict. I was actually in the class and I was like, whoa, this is rough, right? But my daughter didn't seem fazed by it and she seemed okay by it. Then the next year, she had a teacher who apparently was very strict. And she came to me and she said, Mom, I don't know. I don't have words for it. I don't know, but there's something that feels so wrong. Like, I don't feel good in this environment.
Oh, wow.
And I said, well, that's really interesting, because last year, like, I feel like your teacher last year was really strict too. And she said, yeah, but there was something different about her strictness. Like the way she talked and the things she said, like, I felt like she was being strict for like good reason, or like it felt okay. Like it literally felt okay in her body. Whereas the teacher from
Wow.
the next year, there was something about how she treated the kids or how she came off that for some reason my daughter didn't feel good. And
Wow.
it really affected her over the year. We really had to talk. So it's things like that are really interesting, because I said, she doesn't have words. She's like, Mom, I can't tell you why. And I said, you know what? Most of the time we don't. we can't say why. Like we're in a situation and something feels wrong or uncomfortable or scary.
Yeah.
We're not sure what's going on, or like the dynamic with somebody isn't comfortable. But if we tell them like, no, 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 it's okay, like it's no big deal, and we don't dig into that, then what's going to happen? I just feel like
Wow, Lauren,
when
that's powerful.
when they go out in the world
Yeah.
and they're in a situation that's uncomfortable and not
Yeah.
okay, like I need her to dig into that, or any of my kids or myself. I mean, I'm still working on that.
Yes.
Where it's, I think we just know that something's off or not okay, and we have to follow that.
It's real. Well, it's interesting because when you're saying, it helps validate a feeling without being able to articulate the words. And I think that's
Mhm.
important too, is saying, hey, I know you
Yes.
don't have words for this, but doesn't mean that that's not spot on. I've had pretty much the polar opposite experience. I feel like I didn't listen to my intuition for many, many, many years.
Yes.
Just started to. So it makes me really appreciate you doing that for your daughter. So and just your kids, right? Just to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
powerful.
tell me your experience with that, because I'm doing the same, right? As an adult, I'm still not listening sometimes, and then I go back and I think, well, of course, I knew that, right? But tell me a little bit about your experience, because I feel like this is the work we need to do, is really dig into that.
It's like yeah, it's so much work. It's where I don't know if it came from having mentors and coaches and always wanting to run ideas, like I guess almost invalidating my own thoughts
Mm,
sometimes, saying someone always had a better insight, or I wanted to run it by them, to the point where I did that in so many times that other people had advice and I stopped paying attention to my own intuition. And
yeah.
I had met a woman who's become a friend now, who that was the first thing she said to me 2 years ago, about 2 years ago, is you probably are not paying attention to your intuition. And I was like, holy
Mm,
smokes, I'm not. And so after that, it was like, woo, I'm back. Like, I feel like I'm back on track. It took about 6 months. I, yeah, it's something I ignored for a really long
that's
time.
amazing.
Reasoning behind it, but I think that's important for parents too, to really help their kids like know what that is, right? Because intuition sounds so fluffy. Instinct
Yeah.
sounds a little bit better, I guess, but what is that? And describing that.
I don't, and I'm learning it alongside, really, because for a lot of us, and I'm going to say for women because I'm a woman, and but I think for a lot of us, we're taught to just put all of that down. Let's
Yes.
people please, like make sure everybody's okay around us. This is where burnout comes in. This is where just mental overload. This is where overwhelm comes in. This is where total abandonment of yourself comes in.
Completely.
Is that we're taught that we have to like do everything that everyone tells us, and this is so all I mean, you'll see, I know you see it, it's all tied in together, right? This can, you know feeling that our worth is validated by how we do in school, what kind of sports we play, whether we excel here, and I see it a lot in, I mean, just what school you go to, and having your worth be that, and then having to conform into this way of being that you're not rocking the boat, you're not standing up for yourself, you're not advocating for you're not, because as kids, like I didn't have any of this language. I didn't have any of this language until recently,
Yeah.
right? And I'm still working through a lot of that, and it takes a lot, and it takes a lot of, like, and so being able to do that is modeling it and showing my kids how to do that, and for them to say, yeah, and you just feel like you're all pushed down, and who am I? Like,
Mhm.
I know so many people in my age group are like, who are we? Because we've like shape shifted and turned into whatever we thought we were supposed to be at the time. I mean, that I look back and I'm like, oh, I thought I was supposed to do this, and I thought I was supposed to do this. Did I really listen to myself? There's moments that I can go back, and I'm sure you can, where you think, I knew that wasn't, there was something off. It was that feeling, knowing I couldn't put words to it. So I ignored it.
Yep. Yep.
Right. And at some point it comes back. I don't know when. It could be 5, 10, 15 years. It could be 6 months. It could be, but it builds. And then you keep ignoring those kind of like, because yeah, we might not have words for it. And so it's so interesting. And I've, one of my children was more of a people pleaser to begin with. And I think we go in between. I see this a lot, the very highly autonomous, where like the more you push back, I mean, we see this all the time, the more you push, the more you try to put them down, they eventually come back, right? That's where they kind of resent and just blow up, act out, right?
Yeah.
Acting out because I want to be like, don't you see me? I'm going to do whatever it takes for you to see that I'm this person and not the person that you're telling me I'm supposed to be. And then there's this mix of like people pleaser, which is just as dangerous, which is what I was, which is very dangerous long term, right? You know, like listen, you are taught not to listen to your intuition. You are taught for whatever way.
Yeah.
And so one of my kids was definitely more on that. And you actually have to work at kind of undoing that for them. And I remember him saying to me, Mom, I just like, what does everybody else want? You know, as his birthday party, who wants to, you know, watch the movie? What does everyone else want? I want to make sure everybody's happy.
Oh my gosh.
And so, of course, trigger for me, right? Like huge trigger. You can't make everybody happy. You are not responsible. Oh, what happened?
Listen, that was a drop of
That was, I don't know what happened.
I love it.
What is that? Is that like part of
That was great.
That was crazy. But, you know, God, the realization that you are not responsible for other people's reactions or you can't control how they're going to react. Now, that doesn't mean you act in horrible ways or like, you know, you want to act in alignment with how you are and you want to show up as kind and compassionate but with certain boundaries or certain knowing of like, I could say something to you that I think is so kind and nice and you could completely blow up. Like I have no control over what you're going to do. And that's your like whatever trigger that I said something.
Yeah.
I could say the same thing to somebody else and they could think, oh my God, that's the nicest thing that Lauren said to me. And that was so nice. And you could say, oh my God, how dare you say that to me? Because you're triggered by something that is something that I didn't know.
Yes.
So teaching my son, like just being like, you are so not responsible. Your friends are here, you know, in that circumstance it was like your friends are here because they're here for your birthday. They want you to be happy. You make a choice. And some people might be disappointed and some people might not be. And that is really not up to you.
Yeah.
Right. You know, you just show up in a kind, compassionate way that you know, curious, not judgment, like do the best you can. I clearly, you know, it's hard. You're not always showing up in that way, but you can't, God, it's so liberating when you're like, I can't control how they react and saying no or putting your boundaries in. So now he's great. He's great at saying no to me. He's great.
Created a monster.
But no, but it's great because I see that he's like, Mom, I'm not okay with this. He actually came to me. He came to me recently and I did something that I would be normally doing as a mom, checking on his flight or something, like just something that I would think was not a big deal. Right. For him, because he has epilepsy and there's a lot around that, right? The concern. He thought that I was, oh, you're always so overprotective. Can you give me some space? Like, right. So his experience was different than my experience. Both of our experiences were real and okay and not right or wrong. But for him to be able to say, Mom, like that really upset me because I feel like you don't trust me.
Mm.
Whereas I'm sitting there like, this has nothing to do with me not trusting you. Of course I trust you. I was just, checking something so I knew. And so, but the fact that he could tell me
that's amazing.
And be like, Mom, I'm not okay with that. Can you please back off? Or can you please trust me a little, okay, how can I show you can trust you? And then he also can listen to my perspective. Like, wow, okay, I can see why you thought that.
That's beautiful.
I can see why I can see why you thought that, but wow, I was just really scared. Like I was just checking out because this is just something I do and I would do it for your other brothers, but I could see why you thought it was over the top or because you have, the epilepsy. And so that's connection versus rupture. Meeting, right, just for him, but to watch them have the language and it's years of doing this. And it's, like I said, it's not always perfect. I mean, tonight I could blow up for something, but no, I think it's just been so incredible. And then the other important part is when you rupture, because you're going to rupture. Like we all do it. We all mess up. We all act in ways that are ugly. We all act in ways that are really like, oh, wow, I messed up. I really messed up, or I had no bandwidth for this situation and I reacted horribly. How
Yes.
do you go back and repair? So that's
Right.
a whole, yeah, right.
But I love
Yeah.
that you have it as like a you're creating dialogue and like healthy discussion over it's not one way. It's not him just telling you this is what you did that upset me. He's open to your perspective, you're open to his, and then you're seeing each other's sides, right? And I think that's like you went right from the beginning,
Like,
you're talking about communication. It's what
yeah,
everyone, if we all could do that and show up. And I really do. I feel like all of this stuff is so, I don't want to say it's hard to do, but it's all like simple things if we just did them consistently, but we're perfectly imperfect humans and we
yeah,
mess up and we have triggers, we get angry and all the
yeah,
things. But could you imagine the average person that's not even like working on anything on
yeah.
themselves? And so
No,
that's
it's hard because you don't see it. You just have these fractures and you have these like missed times of connection. And I'm not saying like I got triggered when he said something and I like I felt it in my gut, like a gut punch.
yeah.
And I got triggered, but here's the difference of me now versus me, I don't know, 5, 10 years ago is it's not about me. Yes, that hurt. It's not about me, right? It's about his experience and give myself, being able to just kind of ground myself and not react in a that could fracture it. I'm not saying I haven't done that. Like, it's
What's
just, it's always a work in progress. But
I mean, I feel like that's for everything, right? Because it's all seasons. It's like once
yeah,
it's funny. It's like when you were talking about boundaries. I feel like I'm a recovering people pleaser because
yes.
I was very aware of that, and now I'm very okay just because of my schedule. I'm okay with saying no, and but the more it's like anything else, the better you get at it, the more people cross your boundaries, the more tests come. Today I did it. I let someone set a meeting with me and I was like, okay. And then I let them talk me into it again. And then today I was like, no, this meeting can't happen. It's not,
Yeah,
I can't do this. I don't have the bandwidth for it. And I was just honest and I didn't leave any open-ended anything. I was just very nice and compassionate. But, boundaries, we need to learn boundaries for sure. And kids need to
but
know
that's
that too,
amazing.
right?
Yeah, kids need to know it too. Because, yeah, and I think it's amazing. And I'm sure it felt like when I do things like that, I don't know about you, like, I'm like, oh my God, like, oh, but then there's this relief of like, when you do something that aligns with yourself. Like that goes back to the intuition. When you do something that doesn't align with you because you feel it.
Yeah.
And you know that you do something that aligns with you when you say no. And it's interesting because I've had situations like that, and I'm sure you've had so many where you do something that you're like, okay, I set my boundary. I feel really good about this. And God, like then people try to convince you out of that.
That's what
Right.
happened the second time. The first time I said no, the second time they tried to convince me, and I said okay. And then I was like, you know what? No. And the answer is
Yeah.
no. That person is never going to say, Radia, you're operating your business and all the things on your plate are more important. And I'm like, I can't do this meeting on a Sunday. I can't help you. I don't have the bandwidth to help you. But I was kind. I said, listen, if you want the resume of someone that I think could help you, I will be happy to send it, but I
Yeah.
just cannot. And I felt really good this time. I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
no means no.
But it's here, but God, we got to teach our kids this. Like, it's for their safety.
For their
It's
safety.
for, like, really, this is for their safety because and I talked to parents who are like going to pull their hair out on kids that are really autonomous and, fighting back. I said, God, you want these kids in this world. Like, I want these kids in this world to go out there and be able to do this. Yes, we do need to teach them how to do it in, like you said, a compassionate way on how we can find alternatives, not a pushover way. And this is, I go back to this, like, this is not about being permissive,
Yes.
but how can we have these kids go out, listen to their intuition, trust their gut? So they're like in a peer pressure situation. I mean, gosh, adults, what, like, right? We all get into that.
Yeah.
You're in that peer pressure situation where like, this doesn't feel right. I'm really like, and having the courage to stand up and having the person, the environment, the family, the friend to go back to and be like, know that they're safe, right? Like, I did this or I stood up. Like, even if I lose these friends, this didn't feel right, but it's okay because I have people behind me, because we've all been in that, right? We've lost friends where we've stood up, not stood up because I don't want to lose, right? Friends, people in my life. and that never feels good.
No.
And so these are like the people we need to be raising and putting out in this world so like we can make it better. So we're not all coming from, I mean, we all, like a lot of us are just coming from like injured place, like hurt places.
That's it.
Like all of it is coming. I mean, if I really go down to like why, when I get triggered, what is it about? It's about usually fear,
Mm-hmm.
insecurity, right? Someone is like ripped or like, I don't know why that does that either. Someone like, you know, kind of dug in right where I knew
Yep.
that I had something that hurts and I'm working on. I mean, my son did it totally unknowing. He said something and it was that exact, I mean, not, he wasn't being mean, he wasn't being hurtful, he wasn't, it was like totally, right? Like going back to the triggers where he like dug in and it was a place that I was really insecure. It really, yeah, I mean,
That's
yeah, and
amazing.
yeah, but it's hard. Yeah, it's like working on that stuff and creating kids that recognize that, have language for that,
Yeah.
like can speak up for themselves.
How would
Yeah,
you,
I mean,
like, I just think of, I don't know, I think of my audience, I think is the average person, like the average person that's out there, a blend of parents,
yes,
not parents, all the things. When they're around young kids, young adults, even if they're single like me and you go into a store, like I actually saw two kids, neighbors, and I hesitated to butt in, but I wanted to say good job because they were doing sprints and the kids were probably like 13, 12 years old. I want to be like, good job. Like,
yeah,
I'm sprinting outside and it's a crummy day.
yeah.
But what are like things that you would maybe suggest simply that people should just keep in the back of their mind when they're interacting with young adults, younger kids? Like I'll give you an example
Yeah.
personally. You know, my niece, and she's so smart, she's so cute, and I caught myself so many times saying to her like how pretty she is, right? Because she's wearing her tutus.
Mhm.
And I had to like stop saying that so much because I'm like, she's also incredibly smart and she's a really good athlete. So I'm like, I don't want to scar her. Like her aunt is always saying she's pretty and not saying anything else about her. So I just think of like the influence we have around kids all the time. Like, what would be some suggestions you would make just that might be simple for us to pay attention to?
Yeah, no, I love that because it's so default, right? It's so default, and I still catch myself. I mean, yeah, I catch myself doing that
How
all
we
the
were
time.
raised, like,
It's how we were raised, right? Praise, and so it's kind of shifting out of that praising because it's kind of like your judgment
it is.
on them,
Yeah,
right? Actually, yeah, I shouldn't say kind of, you're right.
it is judgment.
It's your judgment on them. And so it's that
So
if
interesting.
you get stuck into that, yay, good job, you got an A, right? Like, congratulate, you know, like you got an A. Yeah, good job, you got an A. Blah, blah, blah. Or like rewarding. So we do a lot of no rewards, no punishments. So my kids have not been raised on rewards and punishments. And parents are like, well, how else are you supposed to raise kids? Right? They're going to be like run amok. Like they're going to be, right? I mean, this is what I have parents tell me. Like, what are you talking about? How can you not punish your kids? Like, they're going to be crazy people. And I was like, they're actually not. Like, it actually is so different. But it goes back to like the rewards. Like rewards are reverse punishment, right? They're manipulations of how you want them to behave based on what you judge to be good, bad, right, and wrong.
Mm.
And so, I mean, I'm not going to say like obviously there's things that we're okay with, not okay with, and those are values, right? But I'm talking about like, okay, you got an A, and like, good job for the A. Well, if I get a B, is like, am I worse? Am I not? Are you not going to love me if you pay me for my grades, you know, and things like that? If I sports, right? Like you said, your niece is, yeah, of course, because right? Because that's how we're so like that
Yeah.
pretty and like you're so beautiful and I love your dress and oh my gosh. And so yeah, it's just been so ingrained in our society and how we were raised. So it's really hard to shift out of that. And I think it's just looking at, you know, like, wow, congratulations. It looked like you worked so hard on that. Like, tell me more about this.
Mm.
Like, and asking instead of like, it's hard because you're going to have to like really make an effort to
Yeah,
catch yourself and saying like,
I already
oh
do.
my gosh, yeah, I mean, and it's not like it's not terrible. Like you're not going to totally like it's not this, you know, don't kill it, you know, like it goes back to the self-compassion of like, okay, I'm trying to do better and it's you know, you're not going to really mess. But just saying like, "Oh my gosh, you worked so hard on that." Like tell me more about that. Like what went well for you? What didn't go well for you? having them be, like especially with grades, right? And with kids is, oh, wow. Okay. Are you happy with that B? So I have twins and one would like, different. And so my son who would maybe get like, let's say they both got a B on something. Well, one would be so mad because they thought they should get an A. And the other one was so happy that he didn't get a D.
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm saying, oh my God, how could you have gotten a B? Right. Like, and he's like, Mama, but I'm so happy. I thought I failed it. Oh, okay, then great. So it's just having those conversations of like, oh, okay, like, oh, I got an A on my test or I got a B on my test. I usually say like, well, how do you feel about it? How do you feel about it? How, like, what do you think went right? How do are you okay with that grade? It's like, and they're like, yeah, I'm okay with that grade. I studied really hard, or it was really hard. I thought I was going to get a D. I'm so excited for the B. So then I say, congratulations. I'm so glad that you got, that you worked hard and then you ended up with what you want. If it's the flip side, right? Like, I got a B. I'm so mad. I thought I knew this material. I mean, my son just had this. He thought he crushed this test and he did not do well. And so I'm like, oh, God, that's so disappointing. Like, that sucks. Like, it sucks to work so hard. That's like the worst feeling, right? You validate. It's the worst feeling. They're already disappointed. You don't need to tell them, like, right? We already, so yeah, that, right? That, like, God, that's the worst feeling. I'm so sorry. That sucks. And then if they kind of move through that feeling, you don't want to do it at, but then you can work through problem solve, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think you could have done better? Where do you think you need help? How can I support you? That's usually not in the moment of emotion. Like, that comes later because people don't want to hear it when they're really raging or like in this emotional state. But yeah, I mean, for your niece, it would just be like going back to that kind of being curious.
Yeah.
And just like, tell me like what you did today that you're really excited about. Like, what are things that you love, like you want to work on more? Like, what are things that, yeah, like if she's so smart, right? Or like, what is she really into? Just being curious and talking to them like they're people and they're still trying to figure it out.
That's
and they
the
don't know.
wild part.
So I don't know. Does that help you?
It does. It does. Because I was thinking of like how we interact, and when I think about what you say, it sounds so simple, but it sounds so foreign.
Yes.
It's like we're just not treating them like adult. Like, we should be literally talking to them in a way like an adult. Like, how do you feel about that, right? Instead of just asking, uncovering questions. They don't need our judgment in any sense, whether it's good or bad.
No, and it's so funny you say that because it is like when I talk to people about this, but adults don't even do this. Like, I have people that I say like one thing, and I'm like, oh God, and they jump in like they have to fix everything and try. Like, I am so triggered by that because I'm like, don't you think I'm capable? Like, or like,
No, I'm sharing.
right. If I ask for help, that's a whole different ballgame. But, help me work through this, right? But I mean, it's this way of, it seems so simple, but it's a skill that you have to learn. Like I mean, gosh, you're so highly skilled. And how long has it taken you to get to that point and be the leader that you are and the coach that you are? It's a skill. So it does become easier as you get better at it. And you still have things to work on. And it seems so simple, but we just don't have the language, and we just weren't raised in that way. And we weren't, just society, we're not conditioned like that. And so like that goes back to the subconscious and just the active, like working on it. And the work I do with the first responders is really interesting because there's so much trauma there, and there's like a lot going on with them. But a lot of it comes down, right, to conditioning and how they're supposed to be. And it's really breaking that down. So it seems simple when you get better at it. It's like anything.
Yes.
Addition was really hard for us when we were 5. Now we don't even think about it, right? We're like, that's so simple, right? But for like a 3-year-old, they can't do it. And so I think it's just reminding ourselves that, there's just better ways. It was really interesting. I had an interview yesterday, and I was talking to a leader, like he's a leader in the medical field. And I was asking about his leadership journey, and he said something. He said, when you need to always be wondering if there's a better way. Yeah. And I don't know if that like resonates with you. You always have to be open and wondering, could there be a better way to do this?
I think that's really what I mean. If you think of, I just think about just the two of us having this conversation, you and I being both people that are very open to asking for, you're asking your son for accountability of jumping in, and I'm one who does the same. I'm always trying to look at self-development, getting better. And that makes me think that that's probably the biggest, right? If we look at the foundation of everything, it's if people were willing to change their habits, break old patterns, and just be open. Like we look at the
Yes.
political divide and all the things that have been going on in the world for the last, especially the last 6 years, but it's been going on forever. If we were just open to like listening to people's perspectives instead of just shutting them down immediately, like everything would be great. Just natural curiosity. Like, why do you think that? Like, just share with me where you came up with that
Yeah.
philosophy. That's it.
Right. And it doesn't mean, I go back to the, like, it doesn't mean you have to be okay with it.
No,
Right.
no.
Like if my kid yells at me, it doesn't mean I have to be like,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean I have to be okay with this. And I can also sit there and be like, why is he yelling at, like, what's going on for him? And of course, sometimes it triggers me because I'm like, I don't want to be talked to like this. Right. And this is one of my biggest things is I hate the word respectful, disrespectful. That is the number one word that comes out of parents' mouth. They are not being respectful. They're being disrespectful. I'm like, what does that mean? That means they're voicing their opinion. That means they're not acting in the way that you want them to. That means they're not finishing their plate of food. Like, do you really, like, what does that mean? Like, it's very like fuzzy, and it's like you want them to be a certain way, and this goes back to autonomy, this goes back to control.
Yeah.
And so you're just going to call it disrespectful, and you're just going to like, right? And at the same time, if you turn that, if you flip that and you do the same thing to your kid, you would never think you're being disrespectful. Right? Because it's a power. To me, for some reason, this respectful and bad, good, it's I don't like it because it means like this person has power over you. And it's so important to be like, let's have power together, like not over you.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like that means like you have to do what I say when I say it.
Yeah.
That's very common, and it doesn't mean you have to be okay with them doing that, but it's just a better way to look at saying, oh my gosh. I mean, even my son the other day, he came in, he was tired, and I was like, yeah, I can see you're really tired, and I'm not okay with you talking to me like this. Like, it's not okay. I understand, because come on, like if we really think about it, we are doing the same thing. We're tired, we're frustrated, we're stressed out, we have like a million things going on, and we lash out, but it's okay because we have all these reasons, right? Like in our heads, probably we think like, well, I'm just tired and hungry and I'm so stressed.
Yeah.
But I can treat you like, but if they're tired, stressed, or there's, something's going on with them beneath, it's okay. It's not okay because, right?
Yeah.
It's like a double standard. I've said that. I'm not okay. Like, I get it. You're upset. And if there's any way I can help you, but like right now I'm getting, like sometimes I'm like, it's, I'm like, I can see it and I'm fine. But if I don't have the bandwidth, that I'm like, you know what, like, I'm just not in a good, like I've told my daughter, like, I know you're really annoyed and frustrated, whatever the thing is. And I'm like, not feeling like I can take it right now. Like, I'm not okay with this. I'm going to walk away. I'm going to take some space. I'm going to take a few minutes. And like,
it's so beautiful
and then,
that you're communicating that to her too, though, even if she,
yeah,
right, if rather than just creating space and then she's like, what did I do? And what did I do
right.
wrong?
Or that punishment. And I can say like, look, like, when I'm ready, like I can go help her through it, obviously, because, they're kids and they need help through it. But if I can't, and I'm like, this is just not okay with me right now, and I'm just going to walk away. Like, it's okay. You're having your feelings. Like, it's okay that you're angry, frustrated, whatever, tired, blah, blah, blah. I mean, but it's not okay that you're treating me like this, right? So it's also giving them like we also have to teach them accountability for their behavior. So yeah, it's all your leadership stuff that you'd crush it.
Me and one of my besties, she's out in Cali, and her and I have talked about the same thing. We're just like, because we're both executive coaches for leaders, and we're like, we've seen this stuff for years, and we're like, it's all, there's no difference. Like, I try to even tell people, and I'm coaching or in classes I'm delivering, it's like, guys, it comes with self-leadership first, but you're not just leading here, you're leading your families, and they're watching. And like you said, so much of this power dynamic
Yes,
When you were talking about the power dynamic and how it's like we're saying you can't do this, it's disrespectful. That also creates like so much. I'd imagine like that's unsafe for a kid too, because if they think, oh, just because someone's older than me, I need to respect them. Well, what if someone's doing something they shouldn't or inappropriate?
exactly.
Now I'm like, well, they're older. I mean,
Yes,
I think we all know, all
scary.
experience ourselves or have friends that have experienced that as kids because we just thought authority meant we had to listen, even if
Yes,
it didn't feel good and we didn't listen to our intuition.
it all comes obedience and compliance. And there is some research on, I mean, there is some research on that victimization happens because we teach obedience and compliance to people in position. And so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different reasons it happens too, but that was like, there's some research that comes up with people who victimize, right? Vulnerable
Yes.
people, kids generally, is it's easy because they're taught obedience and compliance. They're taught not to listen to their intuition. They're taught not to stand up and say, this is not okay.
Yeah.
And so if that's like anything you take away is like, okay,
Yeah.
right, to protect them, because that's all we do. We want to protect them,
That's
but we
it.
think protecting is controlling and power
Oh,
sometimes, right?
that's
And it's, yeah,
that's a huge takeaway. I mean, I know it's a huge takeaway for me, and I can imagine this for others too. I mean, there's a lot of takeaways, but like
yeah,
that is really powerful. And I remember you talking about your going back to when you were talking about your kids when you were asking about their grades. That was one thing that you had said that I was like, wow. I was like, she doesn't tell them like what she just says like, how do you feel about
yeah,
that? I'm like, that's amazing. Like, but it's so
yeah. I mean, I have to catch. Yeah, it is true. I do have to catch myself because sometimes I'm like,
true.
because
It's just not okay.
but I grew up like that was my worth was based on all that.
Yeah.
And so, and my parents would probably argue differently. I think it was less my parents, more of society,
Yes.
to be honest, in that circumstance. I really, because I look back and I think they weren't really like that. I mean, they were high achieving. So I think if you have high achieving parents, there's this understanding, even if they're not like my parents were not push, like if I came home with a B, they probably would have been fine. I thought they wouldn't be because it was more of my thing in society. But also, I think if you do have high achieving parents,
Yeah.
there's this like fear.
For certain.
But yeah, it's just a yeah.
That's
I lost my
interesting.
train of thought.
No, that's
But
interesting
yeah,
because when you say about the grades, high achieving, or I think of parents like, mine were they came from other countries, so expectations of what they did here, like that's all important. And it's funny when I do not funny, just kind of part of what I do with coachees is I try to help them remove some of the limiting beliefs that they have. And a lot of times it goes around validation, like what made you feel like you were doing a good job? Did you have parents that were telling you good grades were if you
yeah.
didn't have good grades, you were not validated. You're not a good
Mm-hmm.
human being. And so just try to uncover where those messages come from because those messages get put onto employees, they get put onto their kids, they get put into all it's
Yeah. And exactly what you were saying is so important because that's where your self-esteem comes from. And I like, God, I'm still working on unpacking that
yeah.
for sure. And it still comes up. I mean, that's one of my trigger points, but your self-esteem is, you, I want my kids to have a self-esteem created from not tied to stuff. And so, but like the people you're working with, I'm sure, because they're all high achieving, that their worth and their self-esteem comes from that. So it's that like, well, tell me what you did really well. Tell me what you're struggling with. Like, how can you do better? And it comes back to like the resilience thing and the like, you know, like how do you fight, get up again? How do you fail? And this is what's not happening, I think, in our society is we're not allowing them to kind of make their own path. And to me, that's another thing that people just say kids are just resilient. I'm like, kids aren't just resilient. Like they just don't become, what happens is kids put it inside and it, because they think they look like they're being resilient, but they have nowhere to go with this emotions and they don't have anywhere to go with these what's happening. And I think for parents, we can't sit with their discomfort.
Mm,
We can't sit with their pain of failure. And so we don't do it. And then we just say kids are resilient, they'll get over it, right? Or like they can get through these things. Yes, kids are resilient in the setting of like a safe environment and skills that they've learned.
not trauma and
But
difficult challenges.
but see, this is where trauma comes in for these kids is that they go through a traumatic experience. It gets stored,
Yeah.
right, somewhere, and they don't have any way to process it, and we just say they're resilient because they're not showing anything, or they'll act out later or whatever. And so resiliency is a skill. I didn't have it. No way. I'm still working on it. But I think it's because we are really bad in general at sitting with somebody else's pain. It is so hard. And that's the way you create this resiliency in other people, is like you sit with someone in their pain, and then you help them, if they need, you're there so they can get through it. And then I can get through it. I can be, like that's the resiliency, the grit component. I mean, obviously some people have like a little bit more there, just innately, but God, sitting with somebody's pain, sitting with your kid's pain or somebody you really love is one of I think the best gifts you can give to somebody that you love, is to be able to sit with them when they are in a lot of pain and not try to fix it and not try to just, ignore it. And just validate it, the experience and it's hard. It's so hard.
Just
it's
help
like
and offer suggestions and all the things. But I mean, you even speaking about that with like grief and stuff, I think about pain, grief, all the things. And I don't remember where it was. I mean, here in the US, even like, right, you think about women are going through something, if they're pregnant, maternity leave's not that long. If you go through the pain of losing someone in your family, there's not a lot of time for you to grieve. It's like, here's a couple of days off or a week off, and then you got to come back to work. And so that might be also like it sits with them as their kids, and then as adults, you're just taught to like block it out. It's like, I got 3 days to deal with this, and you hear people saying it all the time, like, I have 3 days to get over it. I was the same. Like, even when I haven't, thank God, knock on wood, I haven't lost anyone in my family, but like even when I lost my dog, right, I was like, I wasn't even giving myself a day. I was like, I'm gonna teach the next day, even though I was bawling my eyes out for like 16 years. He was like my baby, and I'm like, I'll be fine, like, it's all right.
God, but it's so painful, and you think you just have to like shut it away.
Like,
and I'm sure you weren't taught. Well, I think that's one of the biggest things, right, that everyone else's lives is going on, and meanwhile you're just massively heartbroken. But that's another thing, you're not taught about that as a kid. I don't remember. I mean, I did lose people, but I don't remember any of that. And then I think also recognizing, I love that you brought up grief, or not. I mean, grief is a hard thing, but I love that you brought it up, because I feel like there's so many different kinds of grief that I think a lot of our like pain and anger and all those things are actually grief. And so to kind of give us like, I mean, there's so many things I feel like I'm grieving in different ways, and as a parent, as a woman, as a like an adult, anything, right? Like there's the grief of like a pet, like a grief of a loved one, a grief, like I think people can wrap their heads around losing somebody close to them, because at some point that happens, unfortunately. But there's so many other different forms of grief that I don't think we're good at,
like, identity,
at acknowledging.
Think of like your kids out of the house, right? That's like a form. There's so much of it that happens all the time. Some societies celebrate it more in different countries, or acknowledge it a bit more, but it's a little more challenging. Like, what advice would you give to the audience? What is a challenge to be able to get yourself out of?
I've been through like years of really where I didn't want to go on. Every day I literally would wake up and just be like, how am I going to get through this? And I once told a friend who had lost her brother to suicide, she said, I just don't understand. I didn't understand why he did that. And I said, well, I don't know him, and I don't understand. But there was a point that I didn't understand either. And I told her, I said, be grateful that you don't understand, because when you understand, when someone's at that point, that means you're at that point and that you're struggling that so much. And I said, I know you're never going to make sense of what happened to him. And just know that, like, you don't want to understand it, because that means that you actually are experiencing that kind of pain and suffering and like struggle. And so what I just want to say is that it's so, I don't know, I mean, it gets emotional for me, because I remember just points where, you know, you're on the bathroom floor, you're on the shower floor, and you're just like, I can't go on. Like, I can't, like, this doesn't make sense to me. I'm so stuck. There's no hope. And, you know, I just want people to know that, you know, like I said, I'm not on the other side. I'm better, thankfully. And all I could latch onto for that time were like, this can't be my kid's story. So whatever you have, whatever struggles that you're going through, whatever overwhelm, like if there's something you can kind of hold on to. For me, it was them. It wasn't their responsibility. They didn't know, right? Like it was just the way that I kept being like this. I just have to show up one more day. I just have to show up one more day for my kids. And because this can't be their story. They can't have a mom that's not here. And I know this is like a heavy way to end it, but I just kept holding on to like one step, like one thing I could do. CrossFit was a huge part of that. I mean, I would be crying and I'd get to CrossFit and do it and then leave, but it was like this thing that I could at least like attach, like if there's something that you can just hold onto of like, this is something I need to show up for, or somebody I need to show up for, even if it's so like you are not the best version of yourself or where you need to be, that just know that there are people, there are people that need you to show up, whether you are really on the floor or, you know, just in a place where you're like, I know I'm not doing the best I can. No. And I think this is, you know, for a lot of women, moms, I mean, men too, because I've come across a lot of men too. So I'll say everybody, there are going to be moments where this is so not the best version of myself. I'm not showing up. This, like, who am I? Like, this is like, how can I even, right? It's like, it's okay. It's okay to not be your best version. There's been days, years that I kept thinking this is not the best version. This is like, I don't know how to keep moving forward. And I just had to hold on to like one thing, you know, my kids, or like getting out of bed to go to CrossFit, or getting outside and seeing the sunshine, or just like knowing that this can't be the end of my story, and this can't be the end of like, this can't be my kid's story either. And I was just thinking, to kind of close it out, I was looking through some photos, and I was thinking, and I know this, you know, this might be hard and triggering for some people, but I was looking at all these photos and I was like, this is what I would have missed. Like, this is what I would have missed. So know that there's more to come, like wherever you are. And there are things that you don't want to miss that are coming. So as I get a little bit emotional, but you know, just if this helps anybody, and you know, that there are people like for what I went through, I know I can show up better for people that are in that space. Because for me, I can be like, there's no judgment, that we're all in this together. We have to be. So that's where I'll end it before I get too emotional. But I appreciate the space and the conversation with you, and your openness to have me on, and hopefully this will help and support people.
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful to have you on, Lauren, and like, thank you so much for sharing that, because it goes from both spaces. I think those that are struggling to know that there are people there that are willing to support, and then just we all go back to like kindness, and you just never know what battle someone's facing. And before you get angry with someone, like, just know that they may be suffering something a lot worse than we think. And so
yes, and just be curious and just try to hold your judgment back as much as you can. I mean, we all have it. It's a natural part of being human, but just being open and having that perspective, and just doing the work, learning how to communicate, learning how to listen, learning how to show up for other people, learning how to set your own boundaries, and what like you've done so beautifully, like to hold your own boundaries of like, this is a non-negotiable for me, and now honors you. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Lauren.
Thanks for the time.
I will put all of her info in the show notes so you can see those. And thank you for joining us during a vulnerable, transparent talk. And hope you got some great nuggets. Thank you so much, Lauren. Thank you.
Thank you.